Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Um, Today, I'm going to talk about SharePoint Online Teams, governance especially. This is something I have been quite passionate about, been working from last couple of years. If you don't know about me, I am a Microsoft certified trainer. And also, I was an MVP for a few years. Uh, and I do blog at smartcitizendeveloper.com. And if you want to connect with me, you can catch up on LinkedIn. Little bit how I started my Microsoft technology journey. So I was a .NET developer, then all the way doing uh, mostly on Office 365 and Power Platform. But let's jump on to what we will be discussing today. I'll be talking about why the governance is important for one of the projects that I have worked on. And then everyone or most of us would be interested in the technical implementation. So I'll be talking about that. And also the key challenges that we have faced and the most importantly, the lessons learned and what are the takeaways. And if you got any comments, questions, we'll take it at the end. But as we go through some of these, if you got any comments, questions, please feel free to drop a note on the chat. So why we started this one? One of the main important aspect for one of the projects that I have worked is the security and compliance. And with the SharePoint sites, what we have saw is the number of sites were growing pretty rapidly. And at the same time, the governance was becoming an issue. Some of the sites, let's say I am working for a project. Now I requested for a SharePoint site and all good. Now I left either that particular department or even organization. Now, sometimes I may grant access to someone to become an owner or more than few people, or all the 4 people might have completed the project and that particular site is no more in use. So there were a lot of considerations on who should be managing those sites, because some of the sites, if you observe, becomes very, very critical when it comes to few departments, maybe HR department, finance, and other important departments. If you got an R&D and so on, for them, the data becomes very sensitive, and you need to be very accurate with who manages the data and how they are managing, who got access to it, whether the data is confidential, and so on. So maintaining the security is very critical. And the other one, like I was talking about, it got so many number of sites. Like when I joined the project, we got somewhere around 12K sites, and it grown up over 50%. Because everyone can go ahead and create from the internet the team sites. So which in turn in the back end, if you saw, there would be a SharePoint site that got created. And other challenge we saw was some of the owner groups were set up incorrectly. Some of these sites came from on-premises and also the other systems. And then when they got migrated, those groups were set up not properly. So that's where there were cases where if they start sharing one of the site, adding people, because of the naming conventions, it was just picking the owners group by default. And that was the reason where we ended up with a lot of owners. So what we had to do was we had to come up with an option, especially because if we see like some of the organizations or most of the organizations, a lot of site owners are not actually the technical people. If your client is banking or maybe in the finance sector or maybe mining or any different sector, retail, they don't be having the technical skills about how the SharePoint site should work, what is SharePoint group, what is SharePoint list, how this is being used. some of them think that, okay, this is just a repository where I'll go and store my files. Most of them might have got or become a site owners by default because someone left that particular department and they need to make someone else as a owner so that they can manage the site. Without having the prior background about SharePoint, it's going to be very challenging for us to implement a solution. So what we had to do was we had to come up with some of the basic questions that we could ask. Even the person who doesn't know SharePoint can simply say yes or no. So that's how this survey got started. We collected the information about all the sites and everything, and then we started surveying everyone. We asked this first simple question: are you still the owner of your site that you're managing? And if they say no, we will not ask any more questions. We'll just keep it simple. Now we know that they're not going to manage that particular SharePoint site. We'll just remove the permissions of that particular owner, and probably we'll make them a member so that if they still wanted to contribute to the artifacts, they can for a certain point of time. But their full control access, so if you call technically, that will get removed. And then if they say that, okay, I am the owner of the site, now we go a little bit deeper and ask one more question. Could you please classify what the site category is all about? Is it highly confidential or confidential, maybe just for internal, or is it even available for the public? So those are some of the options that we give them so that they can go back, even if they wanted to understand those. I'll show that in a demo because we have provided a lot of in-help text because that's, again, like I was talking about, these users doesn't know the technical part. So we just wanted to give them the basic information so that they can go ahead and fill this. And let's say they fill it, then we ask one more question. So now we know that, let's assume that one of the site owner come to the survey and they said, I'm the owner and my site is highly confidential, maybe someone from HR department. Now we are going to ask, do you want to renew this site? Why we are asking? Maybe HR department, you might have seen in the COVID, there might be a lot of initiatives happening. So the site might have created for a specific initiative. Now, do they wanted to keep this, or do they wanted to do this process again, or is just for one-time activity? That's where this question come into picture. If they say yes, then we'll ask one more question. If they say no, then yeah, we are good. They are the owner, but they don't want to renew this site. So which means we got one more additional input from the site owner, and then we'll go ahead and act upon the data that we get. And then if they say yes, they want to renew the site, which means they want to keep this site, and we know the classification and they are the owners. That's where the last question will be asked. And we're going to say, you need to review the access granted to the site. For example, they need to go and check who are all the other owners, who are all the members, and so on. And then let's say if they answer these questions, either yes or no, it depends on those answers. What we do is we categorize all the information into three types. One is either that particular site will become compliant, or it may become completely non-compliant. The other option would be it can fall into archive. What I mean by archive in this case is, let's say if there are two owners and no one is saying that I am a owner, but then we'll go ahead and check few conditions. Similar to, you might have seen some of the archive functionality. We wanted to keep it very simple in this particular case. What we do is we'll go back and check when was the last chat or conversation that happened between the users, if it is a team. Okay, so if there are no conversations from last 30 days, okay, this could be potentially can be archived, um, which means no one is actually using that theme. The other one is we go back all the way like 18 months and check if someone modified any data in the last 18 months. So if we see that from the information that we got initially, where no site was modified in last 18 months, which means this is a good candidate to get it archived. And with respect to the archive functionality, what we did is we just made the site read-only, which means no one is going to make any changes. Also, the other important thing that we did is we excluded the team and search site from the search functionality. So anyone try to look for the information, if it is archived, they'll not be able to find any content from that particular site. So that is the criteria we have followed when it comes to the archive. Next comes to the non-compliant. If you see the last question we asked, did you review the site security? So if they say, sometimes again, site owners becomes very busy because this is not their primary function, right? Their primary function, if I'm a HR, my primary goal would be hiring people and all those other aspects. If I'm finance, I would be doing something else, right? So when they say no, then we tag that as a non-compliant. There might be some portion of the site owners who are um, very take this particular process very seriously. Then they'll go ahead and review it within the timeline as well. We give them enough time. So when they do everything, then we will make those sites as compliant. So after this process, with thousands of sites will fall into these categories. And then we'll continue to do this process repeatedly so that we can achieve the outcome. But how did we implement? We have run few PowerShell scripts to gather the information about all the Teams sites, SharePoint sites, groups, everything. And then we have used Power Automate to send the notifications because this is one thing is very, very important if you're dealing with large number of sites and site owners who are not tech savvy. You give them as much as information possible upfront. This is coming to them, not just on the day like, okay, I got 4 weeks, you go and do it. I don't think they would be doing it. So you initiate the communications slowly. So that's where the Power Automate came into picture. Then we have used built an SPFX web part just to do the survey. And also we have tried to use one of the PNP web part that is available, which is a React content query web part. So let me show you what we got in the demo. So when they come to Office 365 governance site, they see a few options. I just added a couple more so that I can show you the data. But if they come to the landing page here, and again, we wanted to keep it simple. We even created videos for them so that it makes easier for them to finish the process. But then when they come to the home page, a couple of buttons, we try to keep it very simple. What exactly they need to do and what are the sites they want. And when they click on the review sites, it shows the pending sites. And so if you see the layout again, we wanted to keep it simple. If they wanted to open their site, they can just click on the site. Okay, maybe I'll go to the other one. That wasn't a good one. Okay, so they can immediately see the site when they click on open. And also we just made it simple for them to directly go to the permissions of that particular site. So what happens here, we are trying to reduce the number of clicks a particular site owner can make. Otherwise, what we need to do basically as a site owner, I have to click on this gear icon go to site permissions, and click on advanced permissions. So again, we were thinking about making it easy for them so that whenever they come to the dashboard. And also, we are keeping it simple, like, okay, this is the review date you need to complete. And some of the sites you can see you got um, the description, but here if you see this one doesn't have any description. So we are clearly telling them you need to go and update the site description if it doesn't have any description. But whereas here it does got a description, so they don't have to do it. And then let's say if they click on review, then this is what we are going to show them. Like I was mentioning, we're going to ask that basic question, are you owner of the site? And then there is a text that is being displayed to them. And there is a little bit of help if they wanted to understand, because that is something required. If they change the roles and move to different department, all they can do is quickly go ahead and submit. So if I'm not a owner, I'll go ahead and confirm here. So it automatically says, thank you for submitting the site review, and they can click OK, which will redirect to, again, a few more sites that are available. So you can see quickly that site got removed from here. And then I got one more site. So they got all the list of sites. Let's say in this case, they are the owner of the site, and they can say yes. And then we ask a few more questions about, can you define the classification? And do you want to renew? But again, the default options that we are giving them are no. If they say yes, they want to renew it, then we ask one more question that, okay, have you reviewed it, the classification, sorry, the security of that particular site. So that's how we are making it very simple. Running the scripts basically just populate all the information about the sites. This is just the inventory that we have pulled in. And then if someone complete a particular site review, that will be shown here. But also we were capturing the auditing information in the backend so that if they say yes, no, so you can see here the one that I have just submitted, they simply said, this is not in use, I'm not an admin. And you can use this information if you archive it later. You can always tell them, okay, this is what you have done. That's why we have took a particular action against your site. And with respect to the configuration of these web parts, if I quickly show you. Again, we wanted to reuse as much as what is available rather than reinventing some of our own solutions. So this web part is available in the PNP web parts. If you go and look for it, all we did is we try to look for whether the status is completed or not, or if this has to be reviewed by myself. There would be cases where multiple site owners needs to review. Then if I review, that site will get removed from my list. But if they got other owner, then they also need to go and review it. And then what are all the fields that we need to display on the particular dashboard? And then we have the simple template that we have built, which I'll show you in a moment. This is very basic one. We got few styling, and then we were basically looking at whether that particular, sometimes there might be sites where there was no title as well. So we were saying clearly, your site doesn't have any title. And again, the description you have seen for few sites where we were clearly calling them, make sure you enter proper description, which means when people within the organization can access, I'm talking about thousands of people working for an organization. So they might be looking for a particular information, and this is the key one. Let's say if they complete all of their sites within that particular cycle, then this is the message that will be displayed for them, like, okay, you're up to date. There are no sites for you to review. Um, that's a very important one. The other one was the sites I own, also the same configuration except the filter. Here there is no status, rather what are all the sites that I need to be owner of. So that's all we have to do. So pretty much reusing the web parts that are available and the other technologies like Power Automate to make it easier. When we started, just wanted to talk about some of the key challenges that we faced. One of them was helping the site owners to understand the process. If you wanted to talk to someone who is already know SharePoint, it's much easier. But if their core functionality is different, then making them understanding why we are doing this process is one of the major challenge. And also the volume at which we are trying to do is also one of the main challenge. And then when they started the process, that's where one more thing, which is the main part, where we need to help them to complete the process. So those were the three main key challenges that we had to overcome. So how we did basically is, instead of going all the sites that we got or the teams that we got at one go, we implemented them in phases, so that we did a pilot. So which means we took a last year, I believe. So we took 100 sites, which is combination of teams, Office 365 groups, classic SharePoint sites, everything. And then we did a small pilot to gather the initial feedback. And then based on their feedback, we refined the process. That's where you have seen in my previous slides, or even in the demo, that how we come up with those few basic questions. And then we got a training site where we have published articles about what does it mean, like if you're a site owner, how we are going to grant permissions, what is the classification, and we published videos as well, so that they can look at the videos, like 1 or 2 minutes videos. And again, those are not lengthy videos, quickly explaining about specific concept, making it easy for them so that they can understand what we're trying to do. And then at the other area where we have created a Yammer group where they can just come and join in and ask questions, seek help, understand why we are doing at the organization level, what importance this is going to bring for everyone. So those were the how we went about resolving some of those challenges. And when it comes to the lessons, again, you might have heard so many times, adoption is a key, because a lot of site owners, they don't know that even they are the owner of that particular site until we send them a notification that you are owning this particular site. Because we have seen so many responses that I'm not a site owner. So they were like, yeah, it was pretty difficult one to make them understand. And keeping the overall process as simple as possible. When we started during the pilot, it was, we were trying with so many approaches. And again, then we thought, okay, let's make it as simple as possible so that the site owners can take an action and we can achieve the outcomes that we wanted. And then creating the articles and the governance process. Also creating videos as part of the process, making sure they get the help. And then you might have seen in the demo where for each question, there is the in-help context articles, which explains what exactly each of them they need to do. And then ongoing support as well. But if you ask me, what is one thing that we could have done a little bit differently is we could have taken a little bit more time in terms of engaging those site owners, because what we did was mostly on-demand training. It would have been better during those phases where we could have conducted more live sessions for them. That is something we implemented in another project where, and again, you always do one project and take those learnings and implement it in different project. So that is something we have done. Which actually live interaction with the site owners where they can ask us questions. It does take a lot of time from the IT team, but that's very, very important takeaway for us to help the site owners who doesn't know about team security, SharePoint security, why the compliance is important. Yeah, with that, I'll just open for any comments, suggestions, even questions.
Guys, if you have any questions, you guys can raise hands. We'll try to unmute you. We have some comments coming in. Devin, just give us some time.
Yeah, no worries.
Hi, Devendra. So feel free to, obviously we've still got 25 minutes left, so feel free to continue if you, whilst we wait for more questions, if you like.
Yeah, definitely. I think yeah, those were all the key things that I wanted to share. The other project that I was talking about was, I think many of us might have aware when Microsoft actually said 2010 workflows will go away and we got to move away from 2010 workflows. That's where we have implemented some of these learnings. And again, when you are doing any migration project, not just the governance project, some of these learnings can be taken over to the other projects where you go and implement. That's where at the end I was talking about if there is any one thing that we could have done differently was conducting as many sessions as possible with the site owners. Because with the other SharePoint 2010 workflow project, what happened was, again, we got to deal with so many site owners because those workflows are tied to them. So if you're working on a migration project or if you're working on any governance project that you're going to manage and deal with people, the communication is going to be the key. It again varies from organization to organization. If you're dealing with small organizations, it's much easier. But if you're dealing with large organizations where you got thousands of people, and you need to be you need to provide as much help for them to understand why we are actually doing this. Sometimes they don't understand, so the more help we provide them, the easier it becomes. And again, given that from my background where I came from as a .NET developer, nowadays I try to build the solutions. I think everyone is looking towards that. Keep it as much as out of the box, low code. This is the other thing that I would have done differently. I wouldn't have gone with SPFX now. Maybe I would have built in a Power App and then keep it simple again. But there might be some challenges, but there would be always options to overcome. So that is one more thing I would have done differently.
Thanks, Devendra. Since we've got another 20 minutes left, is there any other topics you'd like to cover to help the community understand teams, groups, and sites governance? Is there any other topics that you think we should cover today?
Right. With respect to governance, I think the other key challenge or the training would be keep the training site within the organization and take your search functionality very seriously. So most of the the issues related to the compliance and legal come into picture when people are not supposed to see the documents that they were supposed to see. So when you don't manage your SharePoint security or the team security carefully, and I think the previous session was covered a lot about other features that are available. So that is the other thing that I would talk about. But when it comes to the governance, lately I have been working quite a lot on the Power Platform governance, which is mostly again in the Office 365 itself, but it's mostly on. We did establish a COE toolkit, and that gives a lot of insights for us. And again, the customers that we are currently working with, some of them are not keen to use Dataverse because of the large volume of the users. And many of us might know Dataverse is premium. So what we got to build is some of the custom solutions to manage the communications, especially most of the times. And again, sorry if I'm completely going away from SharePoint Online to Power Platform, but that is something I think if you see in the organizations where a lot of people started building Power Apps and flows, we have seen significant growth in last 2 years in that particular area. Thousands of flows and apps are being built. So if it's the same case with your organization, maybe then have a setup COE toolkit. But again, you don't have to set up everything. You can set up core components, which doesn't use Dataverse, which is related to licensing, and other components you can customize it, use your backend as SharePoint Online, which is what I'm trying to build currently as part of it.
Great,
Okay, I got a question.
Thank you so much. So Devendra, we're getting some questions through now. That's excellent. So Ellen, thank you so much. So we got a question through from Ellen asking, you mentioned archiving and search. Any recommendations around corporate memory considerations for non-current sites that may still have useful business information but no longer actively used? Thank you, Ellen, for that question.
Yeah, thanks, Ellen. When you say corporate memory, is it about the size of your tenant that is growing? So what we did, yeah, please correct me if something else that you're talking about. So what we are currently doing we were just looking at not the system modified date. In case of Teams and SharePoint Online, you might see that difference. We were looking at the user modified date. And if it is anything over 18 months, we are making them read only. So if you see, again, the out of the box feature, we got a site policy that could be created at the content type hub level. And then you can push that particular site policy to all the sites. So if it is a classic one, that works pretty well. But if it is a group site or communication site, what you got to do is you got to enable one of the feature, and then you can push that policy. So first step would be make the site read only, and then monitor it for some time. And if no one is actually raising a ticket with your IT team, then that's where the next step would be. you have excluded that site from the search, which means no one is actually looking at your site content. And then no one is also making changes to your site. Maybe they are just reading the information. And again, you try to monitor the analytics once you're very confident about, okay, this, because again, every organization disposal policy would be different. Some organizations wanted to keep the data for at least 10 years, some 7 years, some for like continuously forever. So it depends on organization to organization, but these are some of the factors I would be looking at looking at the looking at the options, and then start deleting those sites if they don't need anymore. As asset owner, hope that answers your question.
Yes, Stuart has added an interesting point. He mentions it's important to not let the licensing dictate the use cases. Data first may incur a licensing cost, but cause users to create workarounds to maybe bend the product to avoid a licensing conversation. What is the value of the business process? If it is high value, then there is a business case for a more powerful data source. So that's very, very complimentary to what you mentioned there. So thanks again.
Yeah, I agree with Stuart. It always depends on the case-to-case basis where your customer is at. Sometimes we can't force them. All we do is explain them what is available. I know Microsoft giving some of the amazing features with Power Platform, which I'm focusing mostly at my client place. It always depends at what the current client is looking after and what they're trying to achieve. If we are talking about hundreds of customers, users within a business, it may not be costly for them to implement a small business process. But if I'm talking about thousands of users, it's going to be different. So yeah, I completely agree with Stuart. It's always case-to-case basis. I see one more question. As an asset owner of SharePoint site, what would you be the trainings given to business? I think in an ideal scenario, Prince, I would be not making them the site owner until unless they know. But in the real world, it doesn't happen that way because they'll stop using SharePoint.
Yeah, they are the asset owners. Usually, business becomes an asset owners in the banks. So asset is registered under their names. So
yeah,
and
yeah.
then they don't understand how SharePoint works, and then it goes from more messy to yeah, you know
Correct.
where I'm coming.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's yeah.
It's a typical scenario that where I'm going through as well, where a lot of owners of the site doesn't understand how the security is because they haven't been through the trainings, and some organizations spend a lot of efforts on the trainings. Some organizations are not so much. So making them understanding the process. This is where when they start doing the reviews very frequently, this does help them to understand, okay, my site hasn't been reviewed from so long. So I should be doing it now, maybe after a third cycle. Though you can put or a message saying that your site will not be accessed by anyone, but it's going to cause the disruptions. Again, how much volume that you would be dealing with? Are you dealing with 100 users, 10 sites? Are you dealing with 1,000 sites, 10,000 users? So yeah, that is one thing. I think it's a gradual process. This is where I think Power Platform would be very great because the chatbots that people could build using the PVS is pretty quickly. But again, the place where I work, there is a dedicated team to build custom chatbots. So it always varies, but PVS would be a great place where whenever they get into the site, you have those PVS help them to understand about some of the common questions they could ask. Yeah, it's a gradual process, and it does sometimes need to have a dedicated people. Some organizations where IT department would be wearing so many hats, doing multiple things. Yeah, that's the challenge.
Okay, thank you. So we've still got 10 minutes. Any other questions in relation to this topic here, guys? Please, we've still got 10 minutes left. So are there any other questions in relation to sites, SharePoint sites? I think groups is also an interesting one as well. But anyone have any questions?
Okay, looks like no more questions, but I'll be here for 10 more minutes. But and again, really appreciate everyone joining in and listening. Hope what are the learnings that we had is helpful for you if you're going to implement the governance at your work.
Great question by Ellen. So once you've tidied up the estate, how did you prevent the reoccurrences from happening?
Sorry, what do you mean by estate? Sorry, I didn't get that, Ellen.
So the SharePoint estate, you know, the sites, you've cleaned them up, right? So you've removed all the say orphaned folders. How would you prevent it from occurring again? Or should we unmute Ellen so she can ask? Would you prefer that, Devendra?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, let's do that. Let's unmute Ellen.
Hello, Raz.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you. Devendra, really interesting. So you've done a great job. You've got it all tidy. Everybody's sites are correctly owned, and your site owners have been trained or enlightened. How do you keep it that way? So what governance did you implement to maintain or sustain the value of your project?
Yeah, very good question, Alan. I think it's going to be an ongoing process because every time, if I am managing 10 sites now and I'm working for a particular department, and I might be handling 2-3 projects for now, then I might move out of those projects. So which means I don't care about those sites anymore because the project got closed. And now, if I might be busy if I'm looking at from the site owner perspective, I don't worry about that project anymore. If I am highly confidential one, maybe definitely I should go and clean it up. But now I moved on to different project because I'm handling another 4 more in next quarter. Then the process needs to continue. But if the site owners already know the previous one, it's not going to be much challenging if they are with the same organizations, even though they are moved into different projects or different departments. That's the win for an IT department. But the process needs to be continued, I believe. That's what we are doing. We were trying to do once in every 6 months. We don't want to do it every quarter because sometimes it's too much from the site owner's point of view. So yeah.
So the governance process is to repeat it, repeat the survey, repeat the process every 6 months or so.
Yeah,
okay.
That's what we are doing. But there are other tools in the market. If the customer is keen to go with those tools, that makes much more easier. But again, what we built was a little bit custom to start with, so that again, customer doesn't want to pay for the third-party products. So yeah.
Thank you.
No
Excellent
worries.
questions by Ellen today. Thank you once again, Ellen, for keeping the discussion going and helping everyone. I'm sure if we're not proactive in asking these questions, it's hard to help people understand the challenges that are faced. So excellent, well done. So we've got a chance for one more question, I believe, guys. So any other questions that people have?
Yeah, if people can have questions, they can ask me. The other thing that we are trying to do is maybe it might be helpful for you. So what we're trying to introduce was like chatbots for all the SharePoint sites. One of the challenges that we have seen, the place where we work, is if someone is requesting for access, they don't know who is the site owner, to whom the access would go to. The site owner can simply reject it sometimes, though it shows who are all the owners. But imagine if there are so many people, they don't know whom should they email. So what we're trying to do is we were trying to simplify that process as well. So that's the other thing that we are trying to do. But again, this is the gradual steps that we are taking. And again, if you're working for your customers, you don't have to do everything at one go. If you do one, show your manager this would be a win, then implement next one. That's how we are doing it as well.
Okay, great stuff. Yes, okay. Well, I think, do you have any final words, Devendra?
No, I just wanted to thank people and you, Raj, and team for having me here.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that's Devendra. Thanks again, Devendra. So our next session starts in 5 minutes. I can see Ben is online. That's fantastic. I'm just going to check if Sebastian and everyone else is online for the next session. That's going to start in the next 5 minutes. Let's see if we can add Sebastian as well. There we are. Sebastian is being added as well. And let's see if there's anyone else we need to add. Vincent as well. There we are. Okay, so that session will begin in 4 minutes time. So let's, I'm just going to leave and join again just to make sure everything is working fine. Prince, are you able to stop the recording, please? Hiya, Prince. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Raj.
Hiya. Are you able to stop your recording?
Yeah, I'm doing it now.
Excellent. Okay.